Hello, Laura, and welcome back
Hello.
to the Make Life Rich Movement podcast. We're so excited to have you.
Thank you for having me again.
Yes, everyone, I am really excited for this revisiting of everything that Laura and Lifting the Mood have been doing since we last spoke with them. The link in the show notes will contain the first episode. So if you want to, feel free to listen to that and come back to this one if you like to have a little bit of info together. But I'm really proud of Laura. And today's conversation is one I'm super excited for because when I think about Laura and what the last year has been like for her, all I see is the epitome of an entrepreneur in front of me that has not only bootstrapped every single thing by herself,
It's
she
true.
has navigated so many tumultuous turns, twists, pivots, setbacks, fuck ups, like everything you can think of and more. And she has not only persevered, but she has created such a beautiful and successful campaign, launching her product throughout the period of navigating even further issues throughout the launch period, which is one of the scariest times to experience some hiccups. And I just want to say that I'm going to clap for you because you fucking killed it, friend.
Thanks, Sarah. Thank you. Sometimes you need someone to remind you that it's okay. It's okay. You did well.
You've not only done well, but you've done well by yourself. And I think that that is the biggest thing that I'd like to kind of start off with talking about. You, in our last episode, our first episode together, you were just discussing your need and want to create a community for women where, strength and just perseverance were things that were available to you in a manner, in a way that felt comfortable with how we live our life. And that led you to creating Lifting the Mood, which is, gosh, the most insert picture here, just beautiful adjustable dumbbells that are made for women. Yes, right
It's
behind
right
us.
there.
They are absolutely stunning, and not only stunning, but they're effective. And Laura fought tooth and nail to not only get her exact vision for this product, but there are some hiccups within the manufacturing process, which is where we're going to jump in because everything before that you can get in our past episode. So let's start with your manufacturing. You visited China, which happened
Yes.
after our first conversation. So,
Oh my God. Wow. That was a long time ago. Okay. Yes. Yeah. So I went to China, and I guess I'll talk a little bit about that experience. So just even the preparation for it, you have a schedule. I created the schedule of all the suppliers that I had shortlisted, that I had already gotten prototypes from, and I created this matrix that allowed me to see, okay, these are the types of communication that I had with them. I like them from 1 to 10. This is what I need to ask them about, like kind of profiling each supplier. But on top of that, obviously, I had the addresses of where I was going to be in both English, Chinese, and the number and the contact number, just because I have a Latin mom, so she needs to know, and a husband that cares, but he's more chilled out. But in case like WhatsApp wasn't working, so on. So it was crazy because the level of preparation that entailed was insane. What was crazy, even crazier, is that once we went, I saw these suppliers, but my interpreter, it was great because she was also a woman, and she had experience in exporting and importing products out of China worldly. And she also worked at a factory. So she would kind of help me even nail down further questions around processes and about the type of material, and even tell me, oh no, don't ask that yet, or no, like hold off on anyways. So she was also like a bit of like a mentor in that aspect as well, which turned out to be great. The crazy, like another crazy thing, is the factory that I decided to move forward with wasn't even shortlisted in my shortlist. It was a uh, a suggestion and a recommendation from her. She said, "I'm looking at all these factories. I don't think they're the best. Do you think we can go to another factory to another region in China?" Which was, and I only had 2 days left to go. And I remember calling my husband, and I was just like, should I do it? Like, should I just stick with what I have? And so I remember him being like, what are you, like, you're all the way there. Just take the flight and go to the other region of China. I never ended up telling my mom. I just said I'm taking the train to another region. Let's just say the flight that I took was, we were the only two white people. Me and my friend were the only two white women in that plane. It was quite an experience. But we made it and we went to the other factory, and it was what I needed. And so I ended up making the deal with them and asking them to make a sample, but I had already seen their exhibit room and their finishings and the way they talked about things and the way they suggested making certain changes. I just knew immediately that they were the ones that I needed to move forward with. Other than obviously the ethical part, which I walked through every factory and I saw this particular factory, and I don't know, I just liked everything about it. The way they treated me, their communication skills, even though it was through broken English. But anyways, so I went, that was the one, that was my experience. That was long, but that was my experience.
My gosh. And literally, like, to think of, and like kind of serendipitously, this episode is going to be about all of the things you have navigated, and this kind of was the first. And I know you were really excited about it, but you were also very nervous, and I can only imagine, like, I never really thought about how severe of a decision this was for you to go to China and do
Yeah.
this and like go check out. Like, most people would just like pay for a bunch of different dumbbells that come from manufacturers, look them over and be like, this is great. Like, this meant so much to you that you planned
Yeah.
for months in advance. You got
Yeah.
over there, you hired an interpreter, and then you allowed yourself in the middle of a foreign country on the other side of the world to trust another woman,
That's
which
true.
just
I
shows
didn't think of
like
that.
how much not only faith and connection you have to women enough to
Yeah.
where you were like, I'm doing this. And she had to have been like, oh my gosh, okay, I'm on your team. Like, let's get this done in
Do you
true
know what
woman
the
fashion.
crazy part? Yeah, and you know the crazy part is we landed in Shanghai, and she's like, and by the way, we're not getting a hotel. You're staying at our place. You're staying at mine. And I remember looking at my friend, and I'm like, "Are you comfortable with this?" She's like, "Yeah, I like her." It was crazy. Oh yeah, no, no, no. Yeah, Sarah, it was crazy. Yeah, I
And
also got sick, really sick in that trip too. I don't know.
yeah, I
So
can
lots of
imagine.
challenges.
Yeah, between all of the flights and just the different food you haven't had before, like, I'm sure it was a whole thing. But honestly, if you hadn't taken that trip, you would not be where you are right now. So I want to put it out there for people to see that there are levels and there are layers to entrepreneurship. And if you're going to go about it the right way, sometimes it requires these extreme, crazy decisions, like deciding, no, I'm going to go to the place where they manufacture these things because this means so much to me. I don't want this to end in a couple of years. This is a lifelong goal that I have, and I'm beginning it now.
Yeah, and it's also the ethical part, Sarah. You know, you hear so many crazy stories. And so I wanted to know who I was dealing with, how they treated their employees, how the facilities were they taken care of, how the offices looked. And it's hard to cover. You can't it's easier to cover it up when you have, you're not there. You're not seeing it in
Yeah.
person. But for me to be able to see it in person and see how they interacted and how the big boss interacted with the other employees, that made a difference for me. And to also walk through the factory and see what other type of products they were making.
Yeah.
So it
Gosh.
was important for me.
Yeah, and I think it's really cool that we live in a time now where our generation that kind of got to grow up within, the time frame of society, caring a little bit more about empathy, and just our generation is a little bit more inclined to take a harder route if it means it's going to be better for everyone. And I applaud you for taking those measures, because I know that those measures also mean that it was more expensive for you to do what you're doing. So everyone listening, it's really important that you support these brands that are taking the more ethical and sustainable routes, because it costs them money to get to this stage of development and being able to put this product out there in a way that not only they can be proud of, but is benefiting everyone involved. And I think that is something we need to put a lot more support behind
That's
for
true.
business owners.
Yeah, but I think I also want to add, Sarah, that I was also, I guess, I was also very lucky in terms of I had a job that allowed me to do this, to both, to invest in this dream of mine I mean, they weren't fully aware of it. And then also I got a partner that allowed me and said, yes, use what would go to our savings to build your dream. So I think in that sense, I'm quite privileged, but I made the right choices, I think, on how to go about it. But I mean, I'm also very hard headed. So if you tell me no, then I'm
That's
gonna
one
move.
of my That's one of my favorite things about you. I think over the numerous conversations we've had since first meeting, one of my favorite things about you is that you just look a problem in the face and you run with it. You're like, I will get this done. Okay. And I don't know, I don't care who I have to ask for help, but this will get achieved. And talk about that because you are so open with what you're after and what your mission is. And it's really allowed a lot of people to, in a great way, be able to help you with something that they're happy to help with. So talk about that because I think a lot of entrepreneurs are really nervous to ask others for help, especially in the beginning.
I think it's funny. One time, I think lack of knowledge is seen as vulnerability or weakness. Yeah, weakness and vulnerability. But I don't see it that way. I think I own what I don't know. And even if I believe to know a lot, it's a bit like Aristotle. The more I know, the more I realize I don't know. And at the end of the day, that's how I roll with things. And I don't like it when people assume that they know it all, because then it, for me, it's a warning in terms of it means you're not willing to learn some more. It means you're not willing to know that things can change or that there's a different perspective. So listen, I've learned so much. And now what I'm realizing is I have a lot of tools to navigate the unknown. And what I'm loving is that even with, like, it's not even a gender thing. Like, I don't have an issue talking to someone and going head to head with someone who's incredibly knowledgeable and say, yeah, I don't know, but I think you're wrong on this and you're looking at this differently. And one example is I met with a founder who's incredibly knowledgeable in fitness space and supply chain space. And so he looked at my product and he was like kind of like that rough guy, but kind of like typical entrepreneur mindset, right? You're here, you're there, but you dream big. You already made huge connect. You're doing really well. And our meeting was supposed to be 1 hour. It was 2 hours, Sarah. And I went head to head with him. I was super honest with him. And he told me, he's like, I think the way that why would you do XYZ in my process, in my pricing? And I was just like, I studied the market. And he was like, I don't think people are going to buy it. We end the meeting. And I was like, I'm going to show you that they will. And he was like, okay, come back to me and we'll talk after. And so at the end of the meeting, he's like, listen, the only thing I'll say, and this is like a really tough guy. This is not a guy that gives compliments. He was like, I never thought dumbbells could be reinvented or redesigned, but I think you just did that. And so I said, you know what? I'm gonna take this and I'm gonna show you I'm gonna be able to. And now, like the other day I messaged him and I was like, I did it. I'm close to selling out. And he was like, I am so freaking proud. Let me know. Because he has a journalist like platform. He's like, let me know if you want me to write about it. And I was like, yes. But it just comes to show, like, even with super knowledgeable people, if you tell them, I don't know, but this is what I know, can I get your help? People see that, you know?
Yeah. And shout out to individuals that are willing to give advice or their opinion that isn't always positive or
Yeah.
conducive to what you're there to ask them about. Because I think there's a lot to be said about coachability for entrepreneurs. And like you said, your vulnerability being a place where you get to really dig deep into how it can change you as a person and then significantly help your business develop because you're a better person to keep taking your business up and up. But I think it's really important for entrepreneurs to not seek advice hoping to hear an echo chamber of what they already want to be the answer. I think you have to
Yeah.
really prepare yourself to be open to hear things that are challenging to what you've thought about or what you've always known. And oftentimes there's a really beautiful bit of truth between what you want and what they're suggesting. And I think maybe what that conversation did for you, it seems like, was just give you the grit to dig down and be like, you know a lot, but you don't know women and you don't know my audience.
That was exactly it. Yeah, exactly. It's like you're looking at it from a different eye. I'm looking from it from, I know this is needed.
Hmm.
But he also said, but people have validated verbally the market for you. Talk to me when they take out they write the check. And I said, okay, that's a fair point.
Hmm.
I'll give you that, but I'll let me see if I can do this. But
Yeah.
no, it was cool. It was a cool experience, Sarah, because I noticed that I was like, oh wow, I can go head to head with someone like this,
Hmm.
head to head, quote unquote. But it was an
It's an
enjoyable experience.
Yeah, and it's one that I think that every entrepreneur should put themselves through because you don't want to pass the test with a bunch of yes men. You need to pass the test with people that might not necessarily understand what it is that you're doing, but they like your passion and they think that you really
Exactly.
feel like it's your purpose. So they're going to support you, but they are going to give you sometimes information that can feel super contradictory to what you're doing. And I love that you always took information and kind of let what you knew wasn't the right fit slide. It's like you didn't take Bible, everything everyone said, but you took what fit and you moved with it. And I think that's something that's really not talked about enough. Being able to pick and choose
Yeah,
because
it's
at
the
the end of
cherry
the day,
picking.
yeah, you know what's best for you and what you want to do.
Yeah, even with you, Sarah, like when I ask you for advice, I'm just like, okay, I really like this. This doesn't work for me now, and so on and so forth. But it's still incredibly valuable because it gives you an insight into, okay, it's given me at least an insight into, oh, okay, this is what I can think of the future. I'll keep it in my back pocket for when I can implement that, and so
Yeah.
on and so forth. So
Man, let's
thank
talk
you.
about you're quite welcome. Let's talk about when you first received and laid your papers on the prototypes. Let's talk about that. What was it like? I know this was a little heartbreaking and very trauma inducing of a moment for you. Walk us through it.
So I had to go through a few prototypes with this factory because the way that it was assembled wasn't right for me, and there was some jiggling and that I needed to nail down that part, that I said I don't want to get the product out there until we absolutely, I can work out with them, they don't jiggle, they're stable, like there's a set of requirements that I need for this product to have. We got to that point. They ended up doing the product, they ship it. It was, I mean, there were some delays, which, funny enough, the screw you would think is the easiest, or the pin is the easiest thing to do. It's actually not. Every single part of this product has a different manufacturing process. Every single part has a risk. The highest one is the screw. Surprisingly enough, you would think it was something so easy. Long story short, I get the product and there were some like aesthetic issues that I just was like, absolutely not. I opened box by box, and even though functionally the product was perfect, you could use it, you could work out, aesthetically, it was so minor, but for me, it was major. And I know you're supposed to overlook certain things and say, I just need to get the product out there.
Mhm.
But for me, and for women, aesthetics is so important. And not in a vain part, but like that's what I'm selling is the aesthetics first to entice you to want
Mhm.
to push harder, right? To entice you to want to lift that weight. And so if there was any tarnish around that narrative, I decided no, absolutely not, because then you'll probably be going to start looking for it in future once I scale. So after I also talked to you about it, and I also talked to my husband and a few of my mentors, I decided to pull the plug. I decided, okay, let's take a pause. I went back to the factory and said, redo, we need to redo this. And so there was some negotiation. Of course, it was really tough because again, I'm new at this, and because again, I did everything from the packaging design the to the design to the requirements, and all I took is drop feed, cherry pick information from everybody. They unfortunately blamed it on me and saying that the way that the package was designed was it was my fault. And through shipment, some of the parts got damaged due to that. So again, we negotiated. I just didn't want to go through pointing fingers. I said this was a waste of my time. We just need to get to at least an agreement. You're the specialist in these kind of products. Certainly you can take ownership of some level of responsibility of this, and especially if you're doing packaging and you have been doing packaging for such a long time, surely you could have protected certain aspects of our product. Fast forward, luckily we agreed 50-50 split.
Oh,
So that was good. So yeah, they shipped the new part, which was a delay on our end for the launch, but it was a learning experience, and I had already, I guess, financially saved enough that I was just like, okay, if something goes wrong, I can reinvest this, and that's what I did.
man. And it's always a bummer to have these scenarios that do feel so heartbreaking in the moment, but I'm glad that you just jumped back on the horse and you're like, let's just power through this. We've got
Yeah,
a goal here. We're going to get to it. This is
yeah,
on our journey. So
exactly.
there was a lot of heartache in you, just feeling really like there was a lot of failure attached to your launch at this point. And I do remember in our conversations, you were just trying to figure out which direction to go. You knew that it would take a couple more months on your end if you were to go in this direction. You started to get a lot of really beautiful support from the community that I noticed kind of simultaneously started popping up. It was like you're going to more events, there were more people that were interested in what you're doing.
Yeah.
People were taking more content with you to just like kind of like show you walking around New York carrying your weights,
Yeah.
and things started to look a lot more fun. So, can you tell us about that downtime where you were going back to the drawing board, trying to refigure out what your new launch approach was going to be, and then the content that started to, and the relationships, because a lot of really cool relationships have
Yeah.
come into your life throughout that like waiting phase of getting everything kind of squared away. So, what was that time like for you?
I cried a lot because I mean, I'm not the type of person to cry on the camera and post it, and it's just not me. But I was, again, vulnerability, right? It's, listen, I screwed up, something happened, and I'm trying to figure it out. And I think because I showed the evolution and how I started and the behind the scenes and me pseudo venting to in stories saying, I don't know how I'm going to do this, but I'm figuring it out. It was creating this sense of, this is my whole mission, that to show that I'm doing a product about resilience really and about strength. And so I think people started to see that even further, whether it be friends or friends of friends or friends who would tell them, oh, go follow Lifting the Mood or go follow Laura. And also navigating that, and then also not, honestly, I'm not a gatekeeper, Sarah. That's just not me. I don't like it. Like, I love connecting people, and also think within the entrepreneurship community and founders, I hope people see that, and I hope people started following me also and telling other people about the product because of that. So, I think at the end of the day, I love being who I am. And that might sound a little conceited, but I stand by it. And I think I want my brand to be representative of the ups, the downs, and the fact that we can lift the mood through the really rough times. And so I think that when I tell that, or when I showed that story to fitness people or influencers, I mean, some resonated, some others just like dismissed me, but the ones that really listen saw that. And so they see me in person versus also online, and they see that the both align. Both, who you see me and who I'm talking to you here is the same person you'll see hopefully on the street.
Mhm.
So I think that's what I'm aiming to do, and to be as real as possible. And it's helped me a lot in nurturing all the relationships, and they see that I'm just me on both ends.
Yes. Yes. I think also too, especially because you're in New York City, there's just We were talking about this earlier. There's just such a there's two worlds in New York for entrepreneurs, and there are the entrepreneurs that are looking for the funding, the seed funding, and they're all about the percentages and like all like it's just so mechanical. And then there's the other side of entrepreneurship that is deep and down on the ground, climbing, army climbing to the next spot and the next spot, most times by themselves. And I think it's really beautiful to see such polar opposites within the entrepreneurship community, especially in New York City. But I do know that it's been really enjoyable for me as a professional to watch you truly carve out your path in a way that only you could do. And I know that there's a lot of comparison traps in New York, especially with, every Tom, Dick, and Harry getting funded for 5 mil. Like we could just go on and on
Oh my
about all these
God.
inflated numbers, but I think it's really important for all entrepreneurs to know that there's a higher likelihood of you not being around a couple of years from now if you have funding than if you do it by yourself. And I think there's a lot to be said for striving through the murky waters for as long as it takes to build that foundation, not only of resilience as you have, but it's putting your business through the rigors. It's showing the weak spots, and it does give you the ability to really get in there and patch it up while you're still in the beginning phases of your business and not allowing money to plug these holes without you building the skill sets and the tool belt that you need to be able to implement to fix and plug these holes as they pop up, as you have over this last year. So Laura's story has been inspirational to you at all. I want you to know that she is amazing, but she is the majority, and you can be a part of that majority too. And the people that you love the most on the internet that are killing it with their personal brands aren't in big cities, guys. They're in Iowa. They're in Tallahassee. They're in places you would never expect, and they're doing it by themselves in the beginning for many years. So just know that there's always the option for you to take your dream and run with it. You just can't stop. And that was why I wanted to have Laura on today to just full blown show the things that have been so monumental in this journey, the good and the bad. But I want to end with you telling us about the moment where you got the perfect set in the mail and then what the launch period has been like for your sales.
Oh man, once the samples arrived prior to launch, which were perfect, it was an overwhelming feel. I mean, I started again crying because it took me, by then it was 4.5 years of nailing and trying to figure out how to build a product and create a product out of thin air, and a product that didn't otherwise exist. And it's not so much, I think what we also have to realize is you don't do it alone. You have a sea of people that have taken the time to guide you. And then it's up to you to use that information and compile it together and do something out of it. And so it was both enriching in the way that I was so incredibly grateful for the people that believed in the fact that with the information that they gave me, I made this happen. And then I was so incredibly proud. I've never been so proud of myself to say, I did it. I had a goal and I made it happen. So that was a moment, and I recorded that for myself because I needed to. So I didn't forget that feeling or how I looked. And then the launch was so successful for me, given that I had to be both understand, okay, what's our brand mission and how do we want to evoke both the feeling visually, and with that, how do we align that with the product? And what kind of people are we going to have around the brand and the mission? And so I wore the art director hat, I wore the photographer hat, I wore the brand hat. And again, like even the day of the photo shoot, I saw, the photographer. I mean, I'm a very organized person, but like to have someone tell me I've never seen someone this organized in a photo shoot was like, yes, perfectionist at heart. But also, the I don't know, the girls had so much fun. And the models, which were fitness trainers, and they represented different stages in their life, different bodies, and different just outlooks and different ages. And that's what I wanted. And that they once saw that they loved the product, and that they all supported each other, and that they had such a great day. And that was a success in and out of itself of that day. And then putting it out in the world, and the world, at least the followers, and for them to feel that as well was a success. So we've launched and we're low on inventory. Yay! So get your LTMs.
Yes, everyone grab the final sets of the first generation of Lifting the Mood. I am so proud of you. I know
That's
you are
correct.
proud of yourself, and you should
Thank you.
be, because it has been not only a journey of your business, but your spirit. And my goodness, friend, you look so at peace and so happy. And I'm so happy you made it to the other side,
Thank
because now
you.
you just get to tell the whole world about lifting the mood and keep growing it, which is amazing.
Exactly. Thanks, Sarah.
All right. So, final question, which you've already answered once before, but I'm so excited to hear your answer now. Laura, how do you make your life rich?
Right now, I'm making my life rich by spending time with the people that I love and just people who enrich me, Sarah. So and listening to the people that I think genuinely want the success of the business, and want to see me succeed. So people like you, and people like my husband, and my set of friends that truly are there for me. And so I don't know, I'm cherry picking, back to the cherry picking, but I'm cherry picking who I decide to listen, message, and communicate with. That's how I feel good about myself, or enrich my life, so to speak.
I love it. I love it. It's perfect. I'm so happy for you. Everyone, go to the show notes. There's going to be so many links. Join their newsletter. Grab the very final sets that are available. You need to grab them quick. There are some different color sets. They're all beautiful, but get in there and pick quickly. And then there will be a link to the first episode if you haven't heard it yet. Laura, thank you so much. This was fantastic.
Thank you, Sarah.